the organizers, Media Plus and Union House, are planning to make this a weekly sort of recurring event to talk about themes relevant to making Nepal prosperous in the long run. But we begin today with an issue that has consumed everyone's attention in Nepal and India. The ongoing stalemate on the border and the crisis that is unfolding. We're delighted to have His Excellency, the Ambassador of India to Nepal, Ranjit, to kick off this series. I think His Excellency doesn't need any introduction. Over the last few weeks and months, he's probably received the highest media coverage per capita.
I'm not sure it's a good thing.
I think we'll try to, the relationship between Nepal and India is, but I just wanted to share with you some things that you may not know. I was just told by one of you who just returned how deep and how close the historical and the cultural ties are between the people of India and Nepal. But it's always illuminating when you talk in terms of, with figures. So one striking statistics that was given to me just recently was, of all the weddings that happens along the Nepali border, 6 out of 10 weddings are involve, cross-border parties. So that's, I think, a revealing number. So more than half involves sort of Indo-Nepal ties, and that speaks of the deepening. So it's not just a one-off sort of a static figure, but it's a very dynamic relationship between the peoples of Nepal and India. The degree of closeness is well known, but also the degree of asymmetry. Just the sheer size in terms of population, in terms of land area, in terms of economic and political might is really asymmetric. And I was thinking of which other pairs of countries around the world sort of resemble this situation, and it was quite difficult to come up with a. And I looked at the map, and I was looking at all the other countries that are fairly similar to Nepal. In economics, Uganda. You look at Uganda, and all its neighbors are comparable to Uganda. You have Sudan and Somalia, countries that have gone through similar problems. Somalia, Tanzania. So you can't say Uganda is very different from its neighbors. You have Switzerland in the developed world. It's Germany is next to it, Italy, France. But Switzerland itself is small but very prosperous, and I don't think the degree of asymmetry is as pronounced. You have Lesotho in South Africa, which is a very special kind of situation. The Uzbekistan stands out as a country which is landlocked, surrounded by all other landlocked countries. And the relationship with Russia is perhaps rather special. But the degree of asymmetry, I think, maybe Paraguay right now. The plan today is really, we don't want to dwell on the issues that are consuming everyone too much. I think which is really the most the hotspot, so to speak. Then we'll, after that short video, we'll have His Excellency perhaps react to the video, but also speak in terms of. And I'd liked in his recent interview now. So we'll start with the impasse, how to solve the crisis, some of the finer details, how to ease the burden, the suffering on both sides. Really take the long view, take the medium-term view, and envision a future of collaboration and shared the extraordinarily generous support that India extended in the aftermath of the earthquakes. And I was there at the national think of things that look at how to prepare and get out of this, and again, envision a shared agenda of collaboration and prosperity. But let's begin with the economic crisis and slowly a humanitarian one. And I think some of the quotes were also stood out for me. The suffering is mutual on both sides. The businessmen across the border are also suffering. In terms of the political issues, unlike the previous Madhes Andolan, this one is not about really establishing a new set of leadership, but really establishing the issues that the people of Madhes have been advocating and fighting for. We've been reading about these issues in the newspapers, but to see it in a video is I think, is even more powerful. I think there's some expectation that the government and the people of India would play a constructive role in resolving this crisis, particularly how to leverage the soft power of India, its power of persuasion, the power of convocation, and against a history of past successes. So I'd now like to give the floor to His Excellency the Ambassador to see how he sees this crisis being resolved. We're quite familiar with some of your views, but it would be good to sort of present them in the context of how do we get out of the impasse, and how do we repair the damage, some of the early sort of the low-hanging fruits that we may conceive of. And over the medium run, as I said earlier, how do we get back to that track of envisioning a future of shared collaboration and prosperity. And this is such a warm and vital and indispensable relationship that we must restore as soon as possible. So with those words, I'd like to give the floor to His Ambassador.
Thank you, Swarnim. And first of all, I want to thank Media Plus and the organizers for having given me this opportunity. And congratulations to Manoj for this video. I think it captures the various dimensions of the problems facing Nepal very well. To the various dimensions that you enumerated, I would also like to add the dimension of social cohesion, which I think is very, very important in any country. I wouldn't like to get into too much in terms of what Nepal should do in terms of resolving the problems that Nepal faces. I think that's something for Nepal to decide. But I want to share with you our perspective, where we're coming from, how we see the India-Nepal relationship in the context of this crisis facing the country, and the road ahead, and what we can do and perhaps should do together to recapture the highs of the relationship. At a fundamental level, as you yourself said, it's a very warm, vital, close, a very important relationship for both countries. For India, we say often that Nepal is one of our closest neighbors, and perhaps this is reflected at the level of the peoples of the two countries. Before we started this program, or perhaps in your introductory comments, I had no idea that 6 out of every 10 marriages that happen in the Tarai have a cross-border linkage. And I might say perhaps the number is not as significant in the eastern part of Nepal or in the far west or even Kathmandu, but I think there is also a vibrant familial connection with these other parts. So India's relationship with Nepal is really with all of Nepal. I think there is a misperception that it's with a particular community or B community, and that's not the case. I think India has a very, very warm, very friendly, a very, very intense relationship with all of Nepal, and we cherish that. Nepal is important to us not only because of this relationship. We have an open border, and we know that we can only progress and prosper together. There is no other option. For the government of India, as part of this neighborhood first policy, I think it was critical to try and ensure that there's peace and stability in the neighborhood. Without that, it would be very difficult for India to achieve its own aspirations of economic growth, of being able to play its rightful role globally. So I think a peaceful neighborhood is at the heart of this neighborhood first policy. And when I say peaceful neighborhood, it's not peace simply in terms of the security dimension, but very much in terms of economic development. So peace, prosperity, stability. very, very critical. The way we look at recent developments in Nepal have raised some questions in terms of peace and stability in the neighborhood in Nepal. The constitution was seen as, it was a great aspiration of the people of Nepal. It was supposed to embody these aspirations of this great country which is proud of its diversity, and where you have the same motto as India does, unity in diversity. And our sense was that this foundational document will embody all these aspirations. But obviously, there is a certain sense of grievance in certain parts of Nepal. And our sense is that those grievances need to be assimilated, need to be accommodated in order to achieve peace and stability. We have no views, we don't say what needs to be done in terms of the specifics and the substantive elements that are agitating certain groups, certain sections. But our intense desire is that these problems should be resolved, because that perhaps will lead to peace and stability. And we also feel these are political problems, and hence the solution has to be political. A solution has to be found through negotiations, through dialogue, through sincere negotiations with a spirit of compromise and flexibility on both sides. And we think it's doable, solution is possible. And we're very happy that very serious and sincere efforts are being made. I think there is a lot of misperception about where India stands on some of these issues. In many conversations I have had with people, with journalists, there is a sense that India is supporting a particular community and India is ignoring the rest of the country or the vast majority of the country. Far from it. We have a policy vis-a-vis all of Nepal. It's not vis-a-vis any particular community. But we also feel that in a democracy where you have this diversity and where there are these aspirations which sometimes conflict, if these aspirations are not addressed, if these potential conflicts are not resolved through dialogue, the implications of that could be very serious in terms of social cohesion in the country, in terms of long-term stability in the country. So it's very, very important to try and resolve these issues. And as you said, the earlier these issues are resolved, the better. The longer the delay, the more rigid the positions become, and the less easy it is to find a compromise. So we really think that in terms of long-term stability, this is very important. I mean, you could say, why is India interested in long-term stability in Nepal? Of course, Nepal is a very close and dear friend. But also because we have an open border, and you've spoken about the kind of relationships. So clearly, if there is instability, it's going to impact adversely. So a core objective for us is really that conditions should be created within Nepal, and this can be done only by the Nepalese themselves, which will provide for this long-term stability in the country. It is beyond India's imagination to do something deliberately to harm Nepal. This is something that no Indian government, no Indian diplomat can ever conceive. We are a friend of Nepal. We cherish this relationship with Nepal. We know the extent, the magnitude, the various dimensions of this relationship. We know why and how important this relationship is, not only for India but also for Nepal. So this is something that must be nurtured. And I think nobody will do anything to adversely affect this relationship, or as one journalist said, destroy this relationship. There's no question of that. But sometimes, and especially over the last several weeks, we get the impression, sitting here in Nepal, that all the problems facing the country are because of what India is doing. And I've said on many occasions that you have to make the right diagnosis. If you don't do that, there'll be problems. So to deflect attention from the core issues facing the country to some external actor or third force, I personally feel doesn't contribute to a solution of the problem. So my sense is that one has to first accept that there is a serious problem and then try and find solutions to it. And as a friend and neighbor, India is always ready to assist Nepal if so requested. And that has been the history of our relationship. I know that the economic impact of this crisis is huge. As far as the humanitarian aspects are concerned, there is some reference to a scarcity of medicines. And I want to clarify to all of you, special arrangements have been made in terms of rerouting of the vehicles, carrying medical supplies, in terms of possible airlift of medical cargoes. And of course, most medicines are purchased by the private sector, so they have been requested to, in their intents, to ensure that the routing of medicines is through checkposts that are open. And I know that the agitating parties have declared 1 or 2 checkposts from which medicines can come. So we hope that this humanitarian crisis, particularly as far as medicines, can be avoided. As far as fuel is concerned, more than 2/3 of your fuel comes in from a particular checkpost. And the reason for that is, historically, it was Raxaul and Motihari that were created especially for Nepal, for Nepal's requirements. And with that checkpost being blocked, obviously supplies have come down, and they're roughly, I think, 30 to 40%. I don't have the exact figure, but maybe 30%. We are trying to facilitate supplies from other depots on the India-Nepal border, but those depots cater to domestic requirements of India. So they obviously can't meet the shortfall of Raxaul. And as far as the rerouting of these petroleum tankers was concerned, I think this has all been completed. I don't think we have any, perhaps I need to check on this, but I think many of the petroleum tankers that were stuck in Raxaul have come in through other areas. An issue that has arisen with this blockade, of course, is the smuggling that is going on. And I think this is very worrisome. Because when you have smuggling, you have criminal elements getting involved, you have mafia elements getting involved, and such activities obviously lead to law and order problems, insecurity, and possible violence. So this is a very negative side effect of the political difficulties in the country. And I think we need to be very conscious of that, because as I was speaking to some of our other diplomatic colleagues, and there was a sense that a huge vested interest is being developed amongst the people who are involved in smuggling. So they would like the situation to continue for as long as they benefit. So I think it's in the interest of both countries, and especially Nepal, to resolve the political problems as soon as possible. And our sense is that as soon as these difficulties are resolved, all the problems at the border in terms of supplies will be resolved. We have a very robust bilateral engagement. Many significant agreements have been signed in the field of economic exchange, hydropower, infrastructure, to name only a few. We in India are very keen that all these projects and all the bilateral mechanisms that we have should continue despite the current problems that we are facing. We don't think there should be a gap or an interruption in the bilateral dialogue between the two countries. It's very important that this continues because it's in the interest of both countries. And we look at the current problems as an aberration, as something temporary. We are very confident, and we will put in every effort to go back to the high trajectory of our relations that was set during the visit of the Prime Minister. And fortunately, on the ground, for instance, in the case of Pancheshwar, I think the work is continuing unimpeded, which is a good thing. So our effort should also be to insulate this bilateral cooperation that we are having from some of the political difficulties that we are facing. I think that's very important. And we should not allow this extensive bilateral cooperation that we have to be adversely affected by the current situation. I think that's something that's important. It's in the long-term interest of both countries. I'm sorry for having made just some random remarks, but I'll be very happy to respond to questions. I'd be very happy to hear your comments. And please be frank and honest. I think it's very important for the two sides to really understand each other. One final comment. We are deeply concerned and disturbed about the growing anti-India sentiment in Nepal. We can understand some of it lies in the great pain and the suffering that the people are facing. But we also sense that sometimes this is used for certain, for certain objectives, political or otherwise. And we personally feel that given the nature of the relationship between the two countries, this kind of sentiment doesn't add to the cooperation, it detracts from it. So basically, not as a diplomat, but as a dear friend of Nepal, I would say that encouraging such a sentiment is harmful to Nepal's interest. It's harmful to India certainly, but I think it's very harmful for Nepal. And I think this is something that all of us should reflect over. And I hope very much that, as Swarnim said, once the present problems are over, we can have a very frank exchange and dialogue. We'd like to hear your perceptions, where you're coming from, why there are these perceptions, what we can do to address them. And we'd like to share with you our perceptions of how we look at Nepal and some of the issues that we have. So as I was speaking to Vijay Pandey, who's a very well-known television journalist, and I said, we brushed such a lot of stuff under the carpet. And he was saying there's just too much dust that has accumulated, and perhaps the time has now come to shake this carpet and get rid of the dust. So I look forward to doing that with all of you. Thank you.
I don't doubt at all the sincerity with which you've put forward your views, and also the other thing I've noticed is also a remarkable consistency in what you've been saying after September 20 and continues to this day. But I think we all acknowledge this wide gulf in perceptions. For some regions, maybe the role of the media, the social media in particular, I think we need to work much harder to really to bridge this gulf.
I am correspondent from ANI TV New Delhi. So, Ambassador, as you rightly pointed out, that the anti-India sentiment which is being encouraged, who you think the architect of this entire propaganda against India?
I don't really want to get into this. I think there is a narrative, there is a certain narrative that has happened in this country, and to some extent one can understand it because of the asymmetry in the relationship and the size. But I think this is something we need to discuss very sincerely, very openly, and in a very frank manner. Because I think a lot of the cooperation, for instance, that could have happened over the last several decades has perhaps not happened because of this, this gulf, and because of this perception. So I think we need to get to the bottom of this in a very open and frank manner, and see why there is this perception and what can be done about it. Because my sense is that this doesn't, obviously it doesn't help India, but it doesn't help Nepal either. And perhaps this is one reason why there have not been very major projects in the last several decades. So I think both of us need to sit, and I'm not casting blame or aspersion on anybody. There are two sides to a relationship. So I think it's very important for both sides, and to have a frank assessment and see whether this is really beneficial to either country.
Ambassador, I'm Umesh Shrestha. I'm chairperson of industry in FNCCI. Of course, you have explained very nicely about the current situation. And as Swarnim said, you have been very consistent for the last few days about your views. I was thinking what to ask you. I didn't know. Let me first of all congratulate on series win against South Africa today. I hope you know about that. You see, I grew up watching Rajesh Khanna movies, Amitabh Bachchan movies. I liked to watch Indian heroines dance. I like to sing sing as Kishore Kumar does. Of course, I can't do that. A lot of us have been going to India for many reasons. For me, I've been going there for business. I go there almost 8-10 times a year. And many people go there for holiday, and also many people go there for medical treatments. A lot of Indians do come to Nepal. They come to pilgrimage, Pashupatinath, and so many other temples that we have. They come to watch, and they also come to watch the natural beauty of Nepal. Now my question is, if somebody goes today in the public, and the question would be, who's your favorite actor? Most probably, majority of people will say one of the three Khans you have in India. And if you ask the same public, which is a actress, the same thing, I think, to Deepika and Katrina, people will talk about. But to same public, you have mentioned it, in fact, anti-Indian feelings in Nepal. I know some part of political groups has been feeling that. And as a youth, I know we were given a lot of dose of anti-Indian nationalism. So same public, if you ask today about India, which is the country you hate most, the public will say India. So don't you think, sir, this is the right of, and I don't believe when you said it's all problem lies with Nepal. There has to be certain problem with India as well. Because as हम लोग बोलते हैं एक ताली से थपड़ी नहीं बनता है. दूसरा थोड़ा बड़ा होगा, दूसरा छोटा होगा, दूसरी बात है. So how do you, view India policy, Indian policy on Nepal in this perspective? What do you have to say on this matter? Why do we hate India? India is our biggest savior. Look at the earthquake, India came massively to Nepal to help us. India is the biggest donor for Nepal in the world. In spite of that, why most of the Nepalese still have this very, very strong international anti-Indian feeling? That's my question, sir. And I hope while answering this question you are candid enough, because I think we've heard a lot of your views over television for the last few days. Thank you.
Maybe, some of the stuff that you read in the media and some of the speeches that are made perhaps give you that feeling. But I certainly don't have that perception when I go out and meet with the Nepalese people. I think our relationship is very, very strong. It's built on very robust foundations. And it's a relationship at the people-to-people level, and I don't think anything can shake that. Of course, when we're going through a difficult phase in the relationship, you feel overwhelmed by it at any given point in time. But I don't think that you can generalize on the basis of that. As to why there's an anti-India feeling, yes, I agree with you that it takes, do haath se taali bajti hai. I agree entirely. And that is why I'm saying this is something we need to discuss. Is it in the interest of Nepal? If India is at fault, you should tell us, this is why we dislike you. And then we'll try and see what we can do about it, if we can do anything about it. Of course, we can't do anything about our size. We can't do anything about our geography. But certainly, we don't like this anti-India feeling. And we would like to get to the bottom of this. So if you have a problem with India, the way India behaves, the micromanagement some people say, then clearly that is something that we obviously have to introspect. But likewise, I think you have to introspect as well. And from your perspective, if I were a Nepali, I would say that, where does Nepal's interest lie? Does Nepal's interest lie in this anti-India feeling, in encouraging this anti-India sentiment? I don't think so. So I think it's very important to have this conversation. Of course, this is something that will take time, and I think you have to have this honest conversation, which perhaps we don't have. We meet at the level of governments, formal meetings. This is something that you have to do, maybe at some retreat with some people and really thrash out this. You see, one point I just want to make, and I don't know whether as a diplomat I should say that, but I think there are sections that feel that promoting this anti-India feeling benefits them in some way, and hence it is wrong. But I think this needs a much deeper discussion.
Let me just add to that a little bit from my own personal experience. At the NPC and as a professional economist, I've had a lot of experience dealing with Indian civil society members and officials in the Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Finance, the National Planning Commission of India. I find them to be extremely professional, and I've enjoyed and the help and the issues discussed are really of mutual benefit. But could it be? I think people in Nepal have I think read the book called Prayogshala, where the detailed micromanagement on the part of Indian spooks, spies, and the lot of basically raw RAW Lumslars in Nepali narrative. So this heterogeneity, and there's the army, Indian army. I think it has a pretty special relationship with the Nepal army. There are the political parties, the Congress I, the BJP. So this heterogeneity, India is a large country, lots of diverse actors who have their own interests. Do you see that it's sometimes hard for someone holding a position like yours to sort of harmonize the diverse interests, or can you assert that there's one government of India and there's one Indian position, or being realistic? Do these divergent interests of the diverse actors sometimes will take their own course and contradict each other? Would there be something there that's sort of fueling this narrative?
See, I mean, as far as there is one government of India position, on that you should have no doubt. But India is a democracy. We have political parties, we have social organizations, we have a huge diversity of interaction with Nepal. So I say there is one government of India position, but so many other actors in India could have diverse opinions, and I can understand that sometimes for Nepal it might be a bit confusing. But I think make no mistake that as far as the government of India is concerned, there is a position. Perhaps in terms of implementation of the policy, how you react with your interlocutors, that is an individual. It depends on each individual. Some individuals have a particular style, others have different style. I can understand a certain sensitivities and the manner in which you should deal with interlocutors. But this perception of micromanagement by someone or the other constantly keeps coming up at the same time. For instance, when there's some problem, they say India must facilitate. So we are kind of whether we like it or not, whether we do anything or not, somehow there's a lot attributed to us. But obviously there is this deep-seated perception, and I think we need to look at it and see how this can be. And I don't know if this perception is only at the level of whether it's at the level of the politicians or the government or the people or the media. Perhaps there are different perceptions in different sections of society. But this is something I've been here over a little over 2 years, and this constant feeling. So obviously, I think this is something we need to deal with seriously.
Yes.
Your Excellency, sir, what we know that after the proclamation of our Constitution.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am Kamlesh Agrawal, Secretary General in Nepal Chamber of Commerce. My question is related with the completely economic side. So after the proclamation of Constitution, definitely we have a political problem by agitation in Tarai area, no doubt about it. But after that agitation, what we feel in Nepal, that there is a blockade by India, economically blockade by India also. But whenever we see your presentations, interview and all, we always see that there is no any such type of blockade through India. But one thing I'd like to clear you, the current economic situation is that all our industries are closed here. All our business are nearly in the closure stage. And we know there is a problem in the Birganj-Raxaul border, no doubt about it, because our video has also presented it. But our dry port, in dry port also, it was blocked by the Kolkata Port Trust Authority to clear the consignments, by which our Nepalese industrialist businessmen has to pay billions and billions of damages to the shipping companies, billions worth of the transportation cost we have high. One example I like to draw in your attention also. Recently, some of the business friends, when they saw that the Raxaul border is not going to open due to the agitation, they transferred they rerouted their consignment to the Kankad-Bita border. There was not any agitation that time, but their consignment was also blocked there for 15 to 20 days. After that, their brokers were moving there to negotiate with the Sima Suraksha Bal, paying them the extra money, they will be able to release it. Because there was a quota system. Every day they will be releasing only 10 to 20, 25 trucks. Whereas there was also a blockade of more than 500 trucks there. When they agreed to pay 50,000 IC per container, immediately their consignment was released. I don't say that this might be not in your knowledge also, Your Excellency, but due to this atmosphere, unwanted elements, mafia elements, they are also getting the advantages and making the situation more complex, more cost of our economy more high than what actual it should be.
Yeah, I can understand how people try to take advantage. I don't have information about the specific issue you raised about Kakarhita, but if there are any such complaints, we'll certainly look into it. But on the on Kolkata, you see, I might be wrong, but my information is that the ICD in Birganj was completely congested. And of course, these trains were coming in from Kolkata, carrying all the containers and bulk cargo and so on. And there was no offtake from ICD Birganj in the initial days. So what happened was that they had no capacity to keep on getting the cargo from Kolkata. So then there was upstream difficulties in Kolkata. If the ICD cannot take any more cargo, but the cargo, your third country stuff keeps coming into the Kolkata port, so it was then lying over there. And that's why there are all these problems of demurrage and so on. But then subsequently I was told by Mr. Ronyar, I think that most of the ICD has been cleared. So now this problem hopefully shouldn't be there. And on corruption issues, this is something we'll certainly investigate. But you see, Kolkata Birganj is connected by rail. Kolkata Kakarhita is not. So Kolkata Kakarhita would naturally have to be by road. So that would have its own logistical and other challenges. Roughly, I think about 600 vehicles are coming in. 600 commercial vehicles are coming in every day, of which about a third are fuel vehicles.
But the narrative we see in the media is, even the other entry points where there's no active protest, things are not seamless, things are not smooth. Could we do anything there on that front, just to show to the Nepali people, look, okay, Birganj, Raxol, internal obstructions, we understand that, accept that. The other 30%, India is really helping in good faith and proactively, just like during the earthquake, and the response going out of its way to really facilitate. Now, we've heard about the rerouting, we've heard about the potential airlift, but if we see, a forceful sort of operationalization of a seamless flow of goods in the other 30%, for the other 30% of it, I think this narrative would change. Do you think we could do some things?
We can certainly, look at that and see the specific problems that you face at each of the checkposts. And sometimes there are also some tensions, like Sonoli Bhelwa, I was told there were some tensions yesterday or today. So that tends to, you see, what happens is when things are bad, then something or the other keeps coming up everywhere, and people also exploit these problems and create difficulties. So this kind of difficulties crop up.
सायद तराई मधेसको सबभन्दा बढी एफेक्टेड जिल्लाहरू मध्येमा एक अहिले अवस्था सायद यस्तो छ कि मान्छेले काठमाडौँ केन्द्रित भइरहेको छ, तर मलाई के लाग्छ भने काठमाडौँभन्दा बढी हामी पीडामा छौँ तराई मधेसतिर। यहाँ त केही पीडा छैन, इकोनोमिकली पनि हामी ध्वस्त भइसकेका छौँ र राजनीतिक र सामाजिक सद्भाव पनि हामीले बिगारिरहेछौँ। हिज एक्सिडेन्सीसँग मेरो के प्रश्न छ भने 63-64 को मधेस आन्दोलनमा जुन बेला 56 जना मधेसी मरेका थिए, त्यो बेलामा तत्कालीन सरकार गिरिजा प्रसाद कोइराला र अहिलेका वर्तमान राजनीतिक दलहरूलाई कही अनुरोधमा मलाई जस्तो लाग्छ मधेस केन्द्रित दलहरूलाई बोलाएर उहाँले सम्झौता गराउनु भएको थियो भने आज त्यो सम्झौता लागू गराउन मधेसी दलले उहाँलाई मध्यस्थता गर्न भनेको थिएन। यही राजनीतिक तत्कालीन प्रधानमन्त्रीले भारतीय दूतावासलाई मध्यस्थता गर्न भनेका थिए भने आज थप अहिलेको बेलामा जस्तो गाउँघरमा हामी भन्छौँ दुई जग्गामा झगडा हुन्छ भने हामी कसैलाई पक्ष बनाउँछौँ भने त्यो सम्झौता जुन पक्षले निर्णय गर्छ त्यो पक्ष या पक्षको रोहमा निर्णय हुन्छ, त्यो पक्षको दायित्व हुन्छ कि त्यो निर्णय कार्यान्वयन होस्। आज मेरो प्रश्न हिज एक्सिलेन्सीसँग 63-64 को बेलामा इन्डियन एम्बेसीको मध्यस्थतामा भएको सम्झौता किन लागू भइरहेको छैन र इन्डियन एम्बेसीले त्यस सम्बन्धमा किन बोलिरहेको छैन? थप अहिले भनौँ 46 वटा मधेसीले शहादत दिइसकेका छन्, मरिसकेका छन्। यहाँनिर कतिपय साथीहरूले हाँसिरहेका छन्। त्यही बेलामा किन गुहार्नु परेको थियो हामीले इन्डियन एम्बेसीलाई? हामीले गुहार्न गएका थिएनौँ। भारत विरोधको नाममा राष्ट्रियता मात्रै हो। कसले गएको भारतलाई गुहार्न? हामीले गएको मधेसी दलले, कहीँ पनि मधेसी दल गएको छैन। जहिले पनि राज्य पक्ष सत्ता पक्ष गएको भारतलाई गुहार्नलाई। र आज हामी जहिले पनि भारतीय पक्षले, भारतीय दूतावासले हामी मधेसीलाई नै दबाएको हो। किन? आज जब आफ्नो रोडरमा गरेको सम्झौता आज त्यो पक्षमा भारत किन बोल्न सकिरहेको छैन? हो, त्यो बेलामा यस्तो सम्झौता भएको भारतले बोल्नुपर्छ, हाम्रो मान्यता छ। तर मधेसलाई त्यो बेलामा सायद भारतले मध्यस्थता नगरिदिएको भए त्यही बेलामा यो समस्याको समाधान हुन्थ्यो। 2-4 दिन 5 दिन अझै टरिन्थ्यो। 56वटा ठाउँमा 60वटा शहादत हुन्थ्यो। तर सायद त्यो समस्या त्यही टरिन्थ्यो। तर त्यो बेलामा भारतले मध्यस्थता गरेर आज थप 40 जना 46 जना मधेसमा शहादत दिए र सबै इस्युमा भारत मौन हो। या त त्यो बेलामा पनि भारतले नपरिदिनु पर्ने थियो, होइन तिमीहरूको इन्टरनल समस्या भए तिमीहरू सल्ट हामीलाई बिचमा नतान। त्यो बेलामा चाहिँ मध्यस्थता गरिदिने। आज चाहिँ यत्रो 700 दिन 106 दिन भइसक्यो तर मधेस पर्नु छ। इकोनोमिकली हामी ध्वस्त भइसक्यौँ, सद्भाव हाम्रो ध्वस्त भइसक्यो, होइन राजनीतिक रूपमा हामी पछाडि परिसक्यौँ। अनि यसरी भन्न पाइन्छ कि तपाईँहरूको समस्या तपाईँहरू सल्भ गर्नुहोस्, यो भन्न पाइँदैन। इन्डियन एम्बेसीले भन्नुपर्छ, किनभने उहाँले त्यो बेलामा सम्झौता गराएको। धन्यवाद।
2-3 चीजें जरूरी हैं उसका समाधान होने के लिए। एक तो सभी पक्षों को तैयार होना पड़ता है समाधान के लिए। दूसरा, किस माध्यम से समाधान होगा उस पर भी एक उनकी आम राय होनी चाहिए। एक पक्ष कहे हम ऐसे करेंगे, दूसरा कहे हम वैसे करेंगे, तो वो तो नहीं होगा। तो जो आपने 2007-2008 की बात बताई तो वो परिस्थिति फर्क थी, और जो मैंने अपने कमेंट्स में कहा कि देखिए भारत का फैसिलिटेशन या सपोर्ट हमेशा नेपाल के साथ रहा है, और जब भी नेपाल की तरफ से इस तरह का कोई प्रस्ताव आया है तो भारत ने हमेशा उसको सपोर्ट किया है। तो आज की परिस्थिति में हम देख रहे हैं कि काफी बातचीत हो रही है, और हमें उम्मीद है कि ये सकारात्मक बातचीत होगी जिससे समस्या का समाधान निकलेगा, और हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि शीघ्र ही निकले ये समाधान।
He has said that whenever a diplomat says yes, that means perhaps. When he says perhaps, that means no. And when that person says no, that means he's not diplomat. Such comments, your clarification gives us lots of opportunity to understand this diplomatic scenario and everything. My question to you is, there are lots of dissatisfaction, political dissatisfaction from agitating groups in Tarai, and indirectly, directly you're supporting them to get good results or positive results. But what is your understanding about their demands? How logical their demands are? What do you think about that? Do you have any? I've heard many times in your interviews lots of things, but I haven't heard what do you think about their demands. You're just saying Nepalese government to address them, but what is their core demands and how logical their demands are.
Well, it's certainly not for me to comment on those demands. I think that's something that the government and the opposition and the protesting parties need to thrash out themselves. So as I said, our only view was on the process, that you reconcile and resolve these conflicting demands and aspirations through debate and dialogue. So, what is a democracy? After all, a democracy is a system whereby these various, sometimes conflicting opinions, views, aspirations are resolved without violence. That is a democracy. So it's debate and discussion and compromise and flexibility, which is at the core of democracy. So it's not for me to say, I may have my own personal views, but certainly it's not for me to say, if X demand is justified or not justified. We know there are big differences in terms of how these demands are looked at. But as I said, the beauty of a democracy is that you reconcile these aspirations. After all, look at India. India is a big country, so many states. We have so many aspirations. Each of us has multiple identities. I come from, one state and I'm a proud inhabitant of that state. But that doesn't mean I'm not a proud Indian. In the same whole. So each of us has multiple identities. We have religious identities, we have regional identities, but all of that is subsumed in our national identity. So there's no conflict between these various identities. So my sense is that, these demands can be resolved. And, these aspirations, sometimes, I don't want to say anything more, but I think they can be resolved.
And people have done the maths. I mean, the initial illusions have, I think, now been dispelled. If you redo the maths, doing sort of little justice to the Himalayan districts, you still have 48-49% of the parliamentary seat allocations. I think those demands, I don't know why our government is hesitating. In fact, the amendment proposals are in the parliament. And reasonable people in Nepal, in the Madhes, I think that this should be passed immediately, and this is on the one hand. On the other extreme, I think, is the secessionist forces, which are also active in the Tarai Madhes. So I guess if you and the more thorny issue of sort of provincial demarcation is probably somewhere in the middle. Now the question is really, as negotiations go on, is there some kind of a middle point? Or is this something intractable? You agree on something, and then since it's a continuum, there's no end. Some groups will you deal with the morcha. There will be some other group that will come and ask for something else. And so I think in anticipation of the complexity, perhaps there's some hesitation here on the Nepalese side. But I think on the more legitimate demands, I think there's fair agreement now that this should be pursued. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Good evening, Excellency and Gopal sir. Well, just hypothetical question, Excellency. The way two sides are moving have indications like that. The both sides have their rigid stand as far as the delineation of the provinces is concerned. The rest of the demands could be addressed, but as when the question comes about the delineation of the states, then I'm sure both sides will be rigid and the negotiations will be difficult. So in that case, the situation becomes worse, suppose. And so would India's stand be the same as it has, right now? Because if the situation goes worst, then I'm sure India would not be in the position to keep just silent spectator of what is going on in Nepal between the two sides. So I would like to get the clear answer from you. Thanks.
Well, you have very wise leadership, and I'm sure that nobody will allow the situation to get worse. So you said it was a hypothetical question, and I hope it remains hypothetical.
Your Excellency, I'm Shekhar Gulcha. My question to you is, today, I don't know if you're aware of it, that there were thousands of students which made processions all around the town. And very interestingly, I was walking past them and I saw the placards they were holding was, not anti-India, but the slogans or the nara they were doing were mostly anti-Indian. And these were the same boys who were welcoming your Honorable Prime Minister when he was here. And just to get a glimpse of him, just to touch him. Why this huge change in such a short time? In terms of like, what do you think is the reason? Is it like a deep sense of insecurity what do you feel that we have, which can change from, in 3 months? Probably our leaders probably felt very insecure when your Honorable Prime Minister was here, that he was probably far more popular than any of the leaders we had. And in 3 months, the children, do you think they're politically motivated? What really worries me is how this can be repaired. We always talk about Nepal, India, we are such great friends. Maybe it's not true after all, Maybe there's some rebuilding has to be done. Maybe when the politicians say we are just two good friends, we're like brothers, maybe it's not true at all. There's something wrong somewhere, which needs to be addressed, Your Excellency. And I feel maybe it's, because we are a small country, sense of insecurity is, probably, and that probably, just comes out at times. But as a large country, I think one needs to understand, and, measures has to be taken to make Nepalese people comfortable. I think, otherwise this is probably the whatever has happened, whoever fault it is. But I think the damage which is being done, it is so deep rooted this time that I feel something has to be done immediately. What's your opinion on this?
Very deeply distressed that school children came out, and I don't know how or why or who was behind this, but I think it's very deeply distressing. And they are going to be the future generation of Nepal. And of course, for us in India, it's absolutely shocking that this kind of demonstration is held by school children. They are at a very young age, malleable in their thinking, and for them, to do this kind of demonstration, I find it very shocking and deeply distressing. And my feeling is, I was thinking to myself, why on earth are these children coming out? Have they come out on their own? Who is behind this? Who is it going to help? Is it in Nepal's interest to have a new generation coming up with this kind of resentment against India? Of course, it's not in India's interest, but is it in Nepal's interest? So frankly, I was very and let me assure you that as far as India is concerned, there is no diminution of the warmth and the friendly feeling we have for Nepal. If you sense, and you're Nepali, so I have to take you at your word, that in Nepal there is a very, very deep sense of anger, resentment, animus, then clearly this is something that's very disturbing, and we will have to sit and chat and see how to get over it. But once again, I want to say, do you as Nepalis want the new generation of young people to grow up with this kind of feeling against India? You think it's in your interest? Do you think it's in the interest of India-Nepal relations?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and His Excellency, thank you very much for this open dialogue and discussion. For a few last days, some questions, as I heard your interviews at different media, different television, and what I noticed is that you have a very consistent thought and vision regarding how these things are going on. You see, as you said, to come up with a solution, there should be, of course, the right diagnosis. And what I see is, for the right diagnosis, we should know the exact problem. So what we have discussed again is the problem that is within Nepal. See, between the government and the political parties, or the government and the people of Nepal. As I feel, and I may be wrong, but I don't know, as I feel this is our internal problem and the solution is right here, not with India. And it's on the good faith, and this is the good thing for India to stay cool, silent, or don't come up with a solution or suggest such things. But what I see, the next problem to come up with the solution, the right analysis, the next problem is not internal. So you see, this is the first time we have a very worsening India-Nepal relation. And the problem I see is not the government of Nepal and the protesting resisting parties. The second, similar, the problem that at the same quantum or more quantum result or worsen result that may arise in the future in the past, in the days to come, is the relation that the government to government and the nation to nation, between the people to people or government to government is worsening. And I would like to expect some very specific and point-wise solutions. The diagnosis that India, as a concerned party, because it's a problem that is between India and Nepal, you know. So, what are those specific diagnosed points that India has or had been working or in its mind as a government to solve this solution? Because, see, the problem that has been is not good for both the countries. So I would like to hear from you, His Excellency. So what are those point-wise things that India as a larger nation, as a larger stakeholder and more responsible country is doing right now to solve not our internal issue, but the worsening situation between government to government relation and people to people relation? Can you please solve it point-wise? Thank you.
The basic problem is within Nepal, but it is a problem that obviously has a spillover effect on India, so India is also affected. But I think you have to understand that the fundamental problem is within Nepal. It's a problem between Nepalis. It's not a problem between India and Nepal. But this problem has the potential of affecting India and hence India-Nepal relations. Because if the situation deteriorates in the Tarai, or if the problems are not resolved, then there would be certain implications, which obviously would have implications, which would have an impact on India. So I think that you have to be very conscious about. In terms of what we are doing to improve India-Nepal relations, we are engaged with every section of society, with all political parties, with all actors, with civil society, with people like you, trying to explain what our position is, one. And two, as I said earlier, we want to continue with all the established mechanisms for dialogue that we have, all our cooperation programs. In the last few months, many of these activities have slowed down. Whether it is defense cooperation, or it is cooperation in the field of hydropower, or infrastructure development, or even some of the small projects. A lot of these activities require a lot of spade work, a lot of preparatory work. And if we don't continue doing that work, then everything is going to get delayed significantly. So we think that okay, there may be some problems, but those problems should not impede our mutually beneficial engagement. So we are very keen, and I've said this to all the government leaders that I've interacted with, that our existing mechanisms for cooperation must continue. Those things should not stop. It's not in Nepal's interest, it's not in India's interest. So we hope very much that will happen. As to the internal problems, how they can be resolved, I think Swarnim has already alluded to some of the issues. I don't want to get into them, but I want to give you my assessment, because my assessment is that these problems can be resolved. My assessment is that the issues are not so insurmountable that you can't find a solution.
Your Excellency, last few days ago, there was about 275 trucks blocked with vehicles, and Nepalese police
break the agitation and allowed all the trucks to pass into the India. And after that, we are expecting some trucks from India enter into Nepal side, but it didn't happen. So I just like to ask you, there is some rumor that this is the game of India. They took all the trucks to their side and they don't allow to pass truck to Nepal.
Issues are political, and we don't think the use of force is going to resolve the issues or resolve problems. We think that solutions have to be found through negotiations. As to the Indian trucks, yes, they were there in Birganj for a long time, and the truckers were protesting. But I could understand why those trucks couldn't go, why those trucks couldn't be rerouted. They didn't have to go through Raxaul. They could have gone through Kakalpita or Jogani, through Birana. So I don't buy that argument at all. I think those trucks could have gone from many other places. So a lot of suggestions has been made as to, there was some collusion and so on. But the response of the people of Birganj, very soon after this incident. So we feel very much that these have to be handled politically, and the use of force could be counterproductive.
Monos? I think we have to end, but short one.
Yeah, Your Excellency. After returning from Birganj, I have so many questions. Let me speak in Nepali because I love Nepali to speak. हजुरले भर्खरै भन्नुभयो नि होइन, कोही एउटा विद्यार्थी चाहिँ नरेन्द्र मोदी आउँदा साँच्चै मनदेखि समर्थनमा उत्रिन सक्छ भने के त्यो उसलाई भित्र रिस हुँदा फेरि त्यो विरोधमा उत्रिन सक्दैन होला, उसलाई कसरी उचाल दिनुपर्छ होला? नम्बर 1 क्वेसन मेरो भर्खर सिकापाले भन्नुभयो क्वेसन नम्बर 1। नम्बर 2 क्वेसन चाहिँ नि, यदि तपाईँ नेपालको एम्बेसडर इन्डियाको लागि हुनुभएको भए तपाईँले कस्तो पहल गर्नुहुन्थ्यो होला, इन्डियासँग कसरी कुरा गर्नुहुन्थ्यो होला? थ्याङ्क यू।
The first one was he's alluding to the spontaneity of emotions. If the same school child would be so happy when Prime Minister Modi was here, do you think he or she needs to be nudged to be angry? I mean, maybe it's a natural reaction based on what he or she has seen and heard. Right? That was that one question. The second one was a hypothetical one. If you were the Nepali ambassador to India based in Delhi, what would you be thinking right now? Or would you be doing?
Well, I guess I would be doing everything your ambassador is currently doing in India. But, I'm sure he's explaining the point of view of Nepal and the government of Nepal to, like I'm meeting with all of you, I'm sure he is doing precisely that. As to the first question, if it were adults, I would agree with you. If it's small school children, I'm a little skeptical.
Thank you. I'm a little bit in dilemma whether I have to ask some question to His Excellency or not after listening your interview with Ravindra Mishra yesterday. But anyway, I would like to ask you 2 questions. One, in Nepal, how much we will cosmetize or wrong, but there is strong sentiment from very beginning. There is one strong school of thought that is anti-Indianism is nationalism. From long before, now it is being in service in higher bottom at present. And in this context, I would like to ask a question. Nepal's India policy is failed. I don't have to comment more. But equally, what I have been saying, India-Nepal policy is also being failed. What you say in this context?
What is your suggestion? What should we do?
No, I don't have any suggestion. And another question, isn't it a interim result of Cold War between India and West? West is, from long before, wants to use Nepal as cockpit to manage the 2.5 billion people of Asia. And India definitely doesn't want to see that in Nepal. Do you see anything of conflicts between West and India in Nepal at present? Isn't it the result of that conflict? Thanks.
I don't know about all these big theories that people have. But all I can say is that it's certainly in the interest of India and I think for all of Nepal's neighbors to have stability in this country, because instability always has like water finds its level, instability also spills over. So I think it's certainly not in anybody's interest to have a conflict type of situation, and especially given this long history of struggle and conflict in Nepal. For the last 60 years there's been some sort of agitation or movement. So the expectation was that the constitution would really resolve all these problems, and certainly that was the expectation. So I don't think it's in anybody's interest, not in India's interest, or anyone else to have instability in this country. So I normally, there are a lot of these speculative theories and conspiracies, and somebody sitting somewhere who's plotting and scheming and planning, all these bad things. I know in India, there was a time in India when we were also attributed everything to this evil foreign hand, that was moving in mysterious ways. So I think, I think the world of today is different. The kind of competition you have is of a different nature. I don't think it's, the kind of difficulties that you had in the past, in the days of the Cold War. So I think every country, all countries would want stability and peace in Nepal. It's not in anyone's interest to have instability. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, you strongly asserted there's a lot of anti-Indianism in Nepal. So maybe not today, but at some stage I think we'd like to discuss reasons, causes, and what can be done to remove it.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Ambassador Ray and the audience for a candid exchange. I think it was a very useful session. As I think Mr. Jha said, diplomats speak in code, they have their own language, so we'll probably have to decode some of what Ambassador Ray was saying into what he actually meant. But overall, I think it was a very fruitful and very candid exchange. I'd like to thank you all. In Nepal, we complain a lot about our own leadership. You must be aware of that in the newspapers, in the social media. We vilify many of them, but the same kind of vitriol is being directed at India now, perhaps because we hold India to a higher standard. It's a bigger neighbor, has done tremendously good things to us in the past. And when everyone is talking about location, advantage of location, our location between China and India, we really see this as an opportunity. People like us, I'm a trained economist, and I looked into the issue of trade costs and landlockedness, and how it can cripple development, how it can contain countries to the slow lane of development, and what can be done about it. And two dominant channels through which landlocked countries tend to lag behind. Not just in terms of nation states, but even within India, for example, you see UP and Bihar lagging behind the southern coastal states. In the United States, you see Maryland and Connecticut with double the per capita income of the sort of inland states like Kansas. And so there's something that structural channels at work which sort of put down a landlocked country, and transport costs seems to be one. So what can we do to really lower transport costs? The second, there's a growing literature now on the so-called neighborhood effect and the growth spillovers. There's some econometric work that shows that 1% additional growth in your neighboring country sort of is associated with, on average, 0.4% of additional growth in the neighboring countries. Now, word peace, stability, and prosperity would be very good. And you know, a lot of the anti-Indian sentiments. I think I'd like to end on a positive note that with a grand gesture of some sort, at some point in the future, we would be able to sort of overcome that and start on a new trajectory, as the Prime Minister Modi's visit showed. You know, he had 60 years of sort of, you know, this latent anti-Indianism fomented by certain political groups, I think, which is quite clear, just melting away with some of the grand gestures that Prime Minister Modi showed. So I think, you know, it will take some time to sort of go back to that original, that recent trajectory, but I am positive that it can be done. And the woes that we faced as a landlocked country, and you know, I think the agenda of connectivity, this is where India can come in a big way. And I know some work is already underway. I think Ashish sent me this map last year when I think after Nitin Gadkari went back, and these roads connecting, because it's not enough for Nepal to build a 6-lane highway from here to Birganj. The amount of infrastructure investment that India does will affect Nepal's competitiveness and all that. So what you've been doing in terms of these road expansion projects, I think there are 8 or 9 coming up to the Nepali border, that will be of great help. The hydro projects, I think, need to be expedited. So some kind of sort of grand gestures, I think, needs to be conceived after this sort of dust settles, and this is where, you know, people like us can sort of come in and help. But there's no, you know, we're stuck with each other, and you know, we have to envision this future of a shared prosperity. But thank you very much, Ambassador. This was a very useful session today. Thank you.